Hey everyone, you're listening to Party Time, My Golf Story with Kevin Walsh and whatever special guest he has today. You can check me out on episode 9 of the podcast. Today I'm wearing Grayson clothes while I'm out practicing because I believe in look good, play good. And follow me on Instagram, Sophia Warren Golf, and hope you enjoy the rest of the show.
It's Party Time, My Golf Story, brought to you by Party Drinks. Classically designed golf drinks for golfers by golfers. And the golf real estate pros Gene Walsh and Vince Visicaro. For your Southwest Florida real estate needs, check them out at suncoastdreams.com. Now here's your host, Kevin Walsh.
Hey, what's going on? Welcome to the program. We have a really cool guest for you, the Confidence Doctor, Dr. Bob Winters. He is a world-renowned sports psychologist. He's worked with many, many PGA Tour, senior PGA Tour players, junior golfers. When you talk about the godfathers of sports psychology, Bob Winters is going to be on that list, if not at the top of the list. This is something I'm very interested in myself because I've been dabbling in golf and sports psychology for almost 40 years. But I want to see what he knows because I'm going to pick his brain. And I think you're going to want to listen to what he has to say because ultimately you may play better golf about that. Big thanks to everybody for liking the show and subscribing to it. If you haven't done so already, would you do that as well? And the reason I bring that up at the beginning of every show is because the bean counters at Spotify, at Google, at YouTube, all that stuff matters. And it also, it matters to our sponsors, all right? Because the bigger the numbers, they feel like they're getting more bang for their buck. Big thanks to our title sponsors, Party Drinks. If you're looking for a drink alternative on the golf course, if you're a little tired of beer because it makes you fat and it's tough to make a backswing when you got a couple cold ones in you, and you're tired of hard seltzers that are named after times of day or crustaceans that crawl on the bottom of the ocean. I mean, how gross is that? Then try a Party. I got a whole rack behind me. And you could have them at your golf course, and we'll have a list of some of our sponsors, places where you can buy Party. Wanted to give a big shout out to Crescent Beach Market in Siesta Key. For those in the Florida area, and that's most of our viewers and listeners, it's been a tough couple months with the hurricanes, and it's been really tough on Siesta Key. But my friends there, Sean and Tana Anderson, who bought the place, rehabbed it, and then went through some really difficult times, back up and running. Party is available there at Crescent Beach Market, and that really ought to be your stop when you're coming on to Siesta Key, going to the beach or whatever, to get your essentials for the day, be it drinks or something else. Party is available to them. Sean and Tana, thanks for being a sponsor. We're thinking about you. Appreciate you a lot. And of course, our golf real estate pros of Gene Walsh and Vince Visicaro from suncoastdreams.com. If your dream is to live in golfing paradise, the greater Sarasota area, especially Lakewood National Golf Club, and soon coming Calusa Country Club, Vince and Gene got you all set up. They live at Lakewood National, and they have a good idea of what's being built right across the street. It's going to be just like this, and it's going to be absolutely fabulous. All right, I think I'll leave it at that and bring on the star of the show here, Dr. Bob Winters. Man, I am so excited to talk to you because I kind of feel like I'm going to get my geek on a little bit with the golf psychology and everything. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Kevin. It's great to be back, and on this show with you, the Party Podcast. I haven't been here with you before, but it seems like I've known you for a long, long time. We have a lot of similar backgrounds.
Well, I think so. The roots in Indiana, you being a native Hoosier, me going to college in Indiana, golf, competitive golf, sports psychology, golf specific, not just limited to golf, but really that's kind of our essential stuff. But so where's home for you now? Where are you joining us from right now?
I'm, here in Orlando, Florida. I live outside Windermere and been here now for about 25 years. And I matriculated here from Charlottesville, Virginia, where I did a lot of work there for many years at the University of Virginia. But I grew up, a native Hoosier, played golf at Ball State University, and then went to University of Virginia to do my final Ph.D. degree, then came down here and lucky enough to join David Ledbetter and be his resident sports psychologist at the world flagship academies for David Ledbetter at Champions Gate, and now we're at Reunion. So it's been a hell of a journey for a long time. It's great to be here.
Yeah, it seems like you just love what you do. I mean, I can feel your zest for life and for what you practice in and make your living in. But let's go back. Let's retrace the roots. You're a native Hoosier, went to Ball State. Sure. Tell me about the town you grew up in, the street you lived on, and what life was like back then.
Oh man, I tell you what. So been around on this planet for a long time, Kevin. So I grew up in a little place called Walton, Indiana, 1,800 people. And Walton was a little town, beautiful little town. We had, uptown, downtown. It was separated by US 35. It's about 60 miles straight north of Indianapolis, in between Logansport and Kokomo. And it is situated in some of the world's best farmland. I mean, absolutely. You just throw something down on the ground and it's going to come up, corn or tomatoes or beans or whatever. So whenever I would actually hit golf balls, when I was about 13, 14, I would actually take golf balls out and hit them in this 360-degree circular driving range that were, farmland. And I could actually go out every row, and a row is about a yard apart. And I could go out and really tell how far I was hitting 150 yards from 180 yards. So, but, I grew up, a little town, and I didn't start playing golf till I was about 13, 14, but I was really small. We had a lot of, kids in my neighborhood. So we played, football, basketball, baseball, all day long. I was the youngest, of 4 kids, had 2 older brothers and an older sister. And, my older brothers were great athletes. So, and they got all the size, but I was really dinky in high school. I mean, when I say small, really, really small. And, I had great eye-hand body coordination. But I found that the one sport I could really do well and compete, was golf. I mean, I didn't hit it very far, but I was really, really straight, really good with the short game, very good little putter. But I had a tenacious attitude. I think that was the whole point about being the youngest in the family, fighting for everything you had, always being the little guy. Yeah. And so I kind of get picked on. So I had to develop sort of I don't want to say chip on my shoulder attitude, but I developed a very tough, competitive attitude. But that's where I grew up. Yeah.
Yeah, that happens a lot with the youngest of the siblings. You're fighting for space, your parents' attention, resources, like on and on and on it goes. Tell me about, not only have you crashed my podcast, you've stolen my microphone. What's going on here?
Hey, I need the help. I need all the help I can get.
Don't we all? Gene Walsh, suncoastdreams.com here. Let's talk about the market and let's be specific about some times. We're recording this on Wednesday, November 13th, a little more than a week removed from the election. What impact has that had on the market?
Well, the market was moving along nicely before the election, and then it came to a pause last week. I think that people were focused on the election and processing the results. And so now we are seeing things pick back up a little bit. People are refocused again. And as more and more buyers and visitors come down for the Thanksgiving holiday and for the warmer weather, we're starting to see it pick up again.
We saw the stock market pick up after the election. Does that help too?
It really does. It helps with confidence, and people feel more comfortable about making purchasing decisions when the stock market is doing well.
Sure. If their portfolio is worth more, they have more money that they can spend. Got any special properties you can share?
Yes. You know what? We've had a price improvement on a great property, 5713 Cheech Glen in Lakewood National. And it's so pretty. And if you're looking for a 2-story home with a bonus room and a fun room upstairs, this is the property for you.
This is on the 6th hole of the Piper course.
Yes.
Part 5. Any rentals?
Yes, I have a few rentals. So if you're looking for a month or to come down for several months, I have a few properties that could fit. It'll give you an opportunity to try out the neighborhood.
Gene Walsh, suncoastdreams.com.
Thank you.
Can I have my microphone back?
No.
Tell me about, how old are you? And because you're older than you look, you have a baby face. You're blessed with that. And some tell me that's the same. So maybe we have that in common as well.
Well, I have been blessed with a baby face. I'm 71 years old. I don't know really where the last 30 years went. I feel young. I feel vibrant. I feel like I'm about 40, 45. And I guess it's because of all the things I've been doing, with golf, junior golfers, college golfers, and even the pro golfers, is that they keep me young. I love what I do. I'm one of the few people in this world who's been really blessed. And when you hear people say, love your work and love what you do. And I used to be able to do, what I'm doing right now. And I did it for nothing for a long, long time. And that's the big thing, as you know, Kevin, is that, in the world of psychology and mental training and performance, is that everyone says, oh, yeah, I know what that is. But when you really get into it, it's a very, very tough field. And you really have to know your stuff, because just being a nice guy and, being pleasant to be around isn't going to cut it. You have to have bottom line results. And I think that's really one of the things that I've been able to deliver all these years. And the one thing I like to do more than anything else is help people. And I don't care who it is. If you're motivated to learn, I'm ready to teach, ready to give you some information.
Well, you definitely have delivered with a number of people, and we'll get into some of your most well-known students in just a minute. Dr. Bob Winters is our guest here on Party Time, My Golf Story. He is known as the Confidence Doctor. He has been in practice for a bazillion years. But let's go back to the beginning. So you describe yourself as something of a late bloomer. You go to Ball State. When did you kind of know there was something more than just the physical side of golf and the grit of it?
I think I was about 16 years of age. And I was about 4'8" and about 80 pounds. And I was playing golf for Lewis Cass High School. I mean, we didn't really have the big, junior golf programs, the Hurricane Tours, the AJGAs, and all the, state section events. So you had to really sort of learn and play in your high school golf team. And I was self-taught. I'm like the little engine that could. And so I just kind of picked up some clubs. I got some junior clubs. They were like Chichi Rodriguez junior clubs a long, long time ago. Played with those. And then when I was in high school, I had to play with ladies clubs because they were smaller and lighter and weren't as long. And I think, really where I first learned it is going against, one of the toughest players in the state. And he was playing for Tippecanoe High School. And he had never been beaten before in head-to-head match play competition.
Who was this? Who was
this? I can't remember his name, but I do remember this is back in 1970, 71. I mean, this dates myself a little bit. This is when we had like the big mutton chops, guys. This guy had facial hair. And
he looks like a man, and you looked like an altar boy.
It looked like an altar boy going against, Godzilla or, King Kong. And he was huge. He could hit it, 67, 80 yards past me. And I remember I stepped up on the tee. And they said, who's number one here for Lewis Cass? And they announced my name. And I remember, when I walked up and he looked around, he goes, I have to play this little guy. I got to play this shrimp. Oh, this won't take long. And something just snapped in my head. And I remember my mother told me one time, and this is really where the power of the mind comes from. She said, dynamite comes in small packages. Says, whenever you're faced, with tough competition, you go out there and you make a big bang. And something just switched. And so I went up and I actually, took this guy head to head. I ended up, getting it up and down like seven times up and down. It was a 9-hole match. I shot even par 36. He shot 38. And I thought, he was going to beat me up at the end of the round. I mean, he was just so livid. He was so upset with himself. And then, I was going to the parking lot to put my clubs, into Coach's, station wagon. That was the van back in those days. And he said to me, he goes, Winners. And I go, yeah. And he goes, come here. And I thought, oh man, this is my day of reckoning. This is where I get my head, beat in. And he looks at me, he goes, I'm going to tell you one thing right now. He goes, you're one hell of a little player. He goes, savor the flavor. It won't happen again. But, you really taught me a lesson today. So, and I think that's really where it first started, is that it had to be something not here, but it had to be something here.
Yeah.
And, and that kind of followed me, into my summer when I went to the Arnold Palmer Golf Academy after I graduated from high school, which is an unbelievable story in itself.
Wait, is it a great Arnold story? Because
It is an Arnold
everybody
story,
who's met, like, they're all stories involving Arnold are amazing, and they're all true.
Yeah. So I was going to be turning 18 in August, but this is back in June. So my parents gave me the greatest present of all. They sent me 3 weeks to the first Arnold Palmer Golf Academy, which was in Stratton Mountain, Vermont. And I drove myself there. It took me 2 days to drive from Indiana all the way up to Vermont. And back then, there weren't that many interstates. And I got stopped twice, along the way by the Pennsylvania State Police because they thought I was too young to be driving a vehicle. And I finally got there. And as soon as I got there, Kevin, I locked my keys inside my car trunk, my clubs, my luggage, everything. So for like 3 or 4 days before I got an extra set of keys, my parents sent via regular mail, I was in a Ball State t-shirt. I had jeans. I had borrowed clubs. And on the first day of the golf course at Stratton Mountain, they had about a 220 yard par 3 up the hill. I think it was number 12 at Stratton Mountain. And I was playing in a group with some people from Ontario, Canada, Doug Millar, and a couple other people I remember. And I actually hit a shot, and I hit it right there to the front of the green. And the people on the green, were actually allowing us to come in. And they started, shouting up and down. I made a hole in one the first day I got to the Arnold Palmer Golf Academy with a borrowed driver. It belonged to Bodie Marks. He was the Yale golf captain. It was his Ben Hogan clubs. And I got a hole in one. And I remember them making a big to-do about it because they said, hey, here's the first day. Little Bobby Winters from Walton, Indiana, gets a hole in one at the Arnold Palmer Golf Academy with a borrowed driver. We're really making some progress here. So, and I got to meet Arnold at the end of those 3 weeks.
What was that like? What was your meeting with Arnold? Because I can tell you with mine, he made me feel like I was the center of his universe. I like floated away. He treated me so good. I just couldn't believe it.
He makes everyone feel like that. And that was really one of his greatest gifts. And he came up to me and he put me in his arms on my shoulder. And he said, I heard you won, your flight division here, the Stratton Boys Championship, and you got a hole in one with a driver. And I go, yeah. And I said, I did. And he looked at me and he goes, I've never done that with a driver. What does that feel like? And I said, feels really good. And he looked at me and he goes, I damn well think it should, And it was really funny because after that, he was asking a bunch of us who were going to be going to college. And I was going to be going to college in about a month and a half, 2 months. And I was going to go to Ball State. And I wasn't on the team yet. And he asked me if I was going to play golf in college. And I said, I would like to. And he looked at me and he said, anybody who wins, my championship and gets a hole in one and plays the way you do, because he got a chance to hit some balls with us and, change my grip and things like that. He goes, you need to go in, try out for that team. If anybody asks, what you're doing there, you tell them I sent you. And that's the truth.
Stop.
Yeah, that's a true story.
I believe it. But was that another tipping point, like the big high school match over the bully? I imagine that was a tipping point where you really started. And then Arnold, like, saying what he said to you, was that another tipping point where, like, you just felt so motivated to take on the world?
Well, this golf academy was really special at the time. I mean, this was 1971. They had a video replay machine that was huge. It was almost like a huge TV studio, and it wasn't small like we have now. I mean, it was just totally state of the art at the time. It was a fantastic, teaching academy. You could hit almost any type of shot, and then we would go play. But you have to understand, they had 128 boys all over the world that were there. And in this Stratton Classic, this match play final, you were going to get some of the very best players from, Colombia and Mexico and Japan. There were a lot of players there. And I ended up, winning, the first flight and beating a young man by the name of Johnny Lockhart from Clinton, Iowa. But I went through a lot of, great players. Doug Millar, who was my roommate, for goodness sake. I had to play him in my semifinal match, and he was a tremendous player. So, it just kept building up and up, where I started just learning and getting better at the game and developing more trust and confidence and self-belief. And that's really, what confidence is all about, is that you have to have some success, some modicum of success, to create that motivator to feel confident, because you just can't go out and say, I'm going to be confident today. But it was, because I had developed technical skills, competence, and I had a strong belief system that, I knew I could do this. And I think it's funny, Mark Twain said, success comes from two things. It comes from ignorance and confidence. And I had a lot of ignorance. I mean, I didn't realize that I wasn't supposed to do this, but, I went ahead and did it anyway. And what I found out over these many 50, 60 years since then is that a lot of people, didn't realize they didn't have the skills, but they went ahead and did it anyway. And then they look around and go, why? I wasn't supposed to think like that. And that's really, where it comes from. Sometimes
I'm
it's
with you.
good to be ignorant. Sometimes it's good not to know. I think when people go out and play a golf course for the first time, they don't know where all the trouble is. They go out and they play it really well. And then all of a sudden they look around and they go, man, there's a lot of trouble out here.
Exactly. And, I even tell when I'm caddying for people and they need some help, especially with wedges, I'm like, it's just a wedge. You're a good athlete. Just hit it. Don't even grind on anything. And your best shot is staying athletic and thinking less. Tell me this, like tour pros, when they're approaching the ball and they're about to pull the trigger, are they thinking of anything at that point, or is the thinking done?
There's a concept in the flow state, created many years ago. The father of that was Dr. Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. You have a lot of people talking about, flow states now, even a good friend of mine, Rick Sessinghaus, known as the flow code doctor. But really what's happening here, the prefrontal cortex, is something called transient hypofrontality. It's meaning that the prefrontal cortex is that it's not overthinking as much. We're actually sort of transferring a lot of the duties of this primary executor, and it's almost becoming automated. And so a lot of people think, that being in the zone is this altered state of consciousness. It really isn't. What it really is a download. It's a down regulation of the mind, is that your mind's not thinking as much about all these different things, like what if, what could be, what's happening, or this is what you need to do. Really, it's something I call directional silence. When a great player steps into the ball, all they're looking at, they're falling in love with the target. They already know what they need to do. They aim, they address, and they lock on the target with their visual system and their balance system, and it just sort of takes over. And so that's where the automaticity comes in. So it isn't, the zone is some type of, some heightened type of activity. It's a sort of a download.
Yes, it's quiet.
The mind quiets, but it's a directed mind. That's why I call it directional silence. You know where you want to go. You know what you need to do. And the mind is relatively quiet. It's not a chatterbox. And I really want to talk about this, because I know you caddy and are a great player as well, is that most people and most players, most amateurs, they get over the ball and they do something that we call in motor learning. And this is your motor, a fine motor, and the gross motor. They do something called reinvestment theory. They're reinvesting all their energy and all their cognitions into, this is what I need to do, point A to point B, and they start thinking about the components of their swing. They get very technical. They get very robotic. It's not fluid. It's not synchronous. It's not very athletic. And that's the great thing about, once you step into the ball, you don't have to think. All you have to do is look and respond to your target. And the visual system drives the motor system directly. And if there's like one tip I would tell anybody, if you want to, become a better player, you just fall in love with your target. Look at where you want the ball to go, believe it's going to go there, and step up and swing to it.
Yeah, it's almost autopilot, automatic, or just trust the muscle memory. You've probably been there before and hit a similar shot. So you're kind of getting out of your way to greatly simplify. Do I have that right?
Absolutely. And that's really what trust is. Trust is letting go of these conscious, over-controlling, manipulating thoughts. I mean, trust is letting go on, I have to try to hit this shot. I've got to steer this shot. And it's really allowing those processes that you've been overlearned through practice and repetition to come forth. So trust means everything's going to work out okay. And that's why trust and confidence are kissing cousins. Because if you trust, you're probably swinging with a lot of confidence, which we call movement confidence. And that's really what it is in the golf swing.
Dr. Bob Winters is our guest here on Party Time, My Golf Story, brought to you by Party Drinks. If you're looking for a drink alternative on the golf course, try Party. And if your dream is to live in a golf community like Lakewood National Golf Club or soon to becoming Calusa Country Club, the Golf Real Estate Pros at suncoastdreams.com, Vince Vizicaro and Gene Walsh got you covered. I am a big fan of hypnosis. I know how to do it. I know how to do self-hypnosis. But I know that's kind of a provocative word with some people. What are your thoughts on hypnosis when you do focusing strategies or deep relaxation off the golf course? Is it not all hypnosis and maybe you just don't know it?
Well, everything is self-hypnosis, Kevin, and you know that. I was a member of the AAPH, the American Association of Professional Hypnotherapists, for many years, and really studied under people like David Ellman and people like that. So I really made a lot of what I call hypnosis tapes early, mastery imagery tapes, guided visualization tapes. So when we start talking about hypnosis is nothing more than heightened self-suggestion. And it's funny, over the years, I've had a chance to meet, some great, great people. And one of them was Brad Faxon. And I was, asking Brad, and why is it, and how did you become such a great putter? And he said, he goes, everybody on tour say, wow, if I had your stroke, boy, you just putted so syrupy. And every day, all day, people go, boy, I wish I had your stroke. They did the same thing to Ben Crenshaw, the same thing with Dave Stockton, even Nancy Lopez. People said, boy, if I could putt like you. And the point of it is that constant reinforcement, that constant suggestion that, man, you're a great putter. And you start to buy into it just via osmosis. And so that's really one of the first things, I can tell people to do is that you start telling yourself that you're, a really good player, a really good putter. And that's why Harvey Penick, told his two best students, Tommy Kite and Ben Crenshaw, when you go out on tour, I need you to go out and eat with good players and good putters. Because the bad players, the bad putters will be sitting there just bitching and moaning about all the putts they missed. And the good putters will be saying, wow, I just can't wait to get out there tomorrow because I'm going to make a whole bunch. And so, the power of suggestion is huge. And I remember listening to Earl Nightingale, and it was really one of the most profound things I've ever heard in my life. And it was a 1953 broadcast. And it's called The Strangest Secret of All. And he said, the strangest secret in life is that you become what you think about most of the time. And that's really sort of, really what I've done with my whole life. I wanted to be somebody really, really important, somebody great, but, someone who loves, what they do and have an impact on people. And here I am talking to you, Kevin. So
yeah, because you visualized it.
Well. Yeah.
And you told yourself it's going to happen. It kind of reminds me of an old story I heard about Gary Player. Years and years ago, he was rooming with somebody and his roommate awoke to seeing Gary Player looking in the mirror, chiseled, of course, because he's just, is in shape, telling himself over and over, I am the greatest golfer in the world. I am the greatest golfer in the world. And he awakes and he's like, Gary, what the hell are you doing? And I think Gary was a little embarrassed, but Gary wouldn't have become the player that he was if he didn't do such things, correct?
Oh, absolutely. And it works the other way as well. When I was coaching at the University of Virginia, I was there on the athletic staff for 8.5, 9 years, while I was doing all my doctoral work with Bob Rotella and Linda Bunker and some great, great people. Coach at Furman University was Willie Miller. And I always loved Willie Miller. And Brad Faxon was one of his players. And he was telling the story years later when Brad went on tour. And Brad was always a very positive person, but he was having a bad event or a bad, couple of months. And so Willie went up to him at the end of the round and he introduced himself. He goes, hi, Mr. Faxon, my name's, Coach Willie Miller. And Faxon's looking at him going, Coach, it's me, Brad. What are you doing this for? And Willie Miller looks at him and goes, I have no idea who the hell you are. The person I saw out there today wasn't the Brad Faxon, really optimistic, positive, I can do anything Brad Faxon. You're sitting out there sulking, getting mad, complaining about everything. He goes, I just think, you and I need to talk. And what it was, Brad was, rooming with a couple of guys who were new guys, and they were just sort of having a pity party, bitching and moaning and being very negative. And it was really spilling on, to Brad. And Coach Miller said, here's what I want you to do. I'll pay you, but I want you to start rooming by yourself, or at least get with somebody who's actually more positive. He goes, because they are really making you sour. So,
Yeah.
You become what you think about. You hang around positive people, you'll probably be pretty optimistic. You hang around
It's
negative
contagious.
people. Oh, that emotional contagion is really,
Mhm.
and what most people don't realize, Kevin, is that in our brain, we have a negative bias anyway. That's why it's so
Yes.
easy to get negative. We're not programmed to be optimistic and positive. Our whole thing as a species is to protect ourselves, to actually survive. And part of
To
that
look for
survival,
trouble, to look for danger, and try to avoid it, which, as we know, is competitive golf. Is no way to play golf.
Absolutely. And I think, by the time, when we have like 1 and 2 year olds, I mean, parents, we say no to them about 400 times a day. No, don't touch that. No, put that down. No, no. So we're reinforced with this no, mindset right from a very early age. And a lot of it's meant to protect us. I'm not, really discounting anyone's parental skills. I'm just saying, we are surrounded by a lot of negativity. And that's why we
Yes.
have a 19th hole, so people can drown their sorrows, okay, at the 19th hole. And everybody, misery loves company, right? And
Yeah, that breaks out the story. It's the bad stories that, like traveling, for example. Like if you got bumped up to first class, I don't want to hear about that. I want to hear about you getting bumped out of like the economy thing and riding with the luggage and them chucking beers down to you while you're freezing your old Coley off underneath it. I mean, to me, that's a great story. But I know what you're saying. You got to have the positive thoughts and carry it through. Let me ask you something about Brad. I'm glad you brought it up. I didn't know you were going to do it.
Okay.
But his second putt theory, are you familiar with it? Why is it like the 6-footer that we miss and we rake back and discuss, and we roll the second one in like it's nothing? Have you heard him speak about that?
Oh, we've always talked about, the All-American, the second guy, second ball is always All-American. Well, obviously there's no consequences then, okay? Because either you make it or you miss it on the first one. And we're so worried about missing it that, we kind of alter and manipulate our stroke. The second stroke is much more free. But there's a more neurophysiological, neuropsychological explanation for this. We've actually seen it. We've actually felt it, through our impact concussion response. And we actually make an alteration. This is what we call in motor learning a movement evaluation feedback response. So now we know exactly what's happened. We know exactly how hard to hit it. So the second time, boom, the second putt, we've already made an alteration in our brain.
Yes, we have the experience, right? So we can't deny that. But I've even heard him say, and I think I can quote him fairly accurately. He said, "Putt like you don't give a shit," because then you're freed up mentally. Well, can we just do that? Can we just pretend first time around and not just limit it to putting, but every shot, like swing like you don't give a shit?
Well, that's what I'm trying to get players to do. We have what I call like the 3 levels of Goldilocks. You have Goldilocks and the 3 bears. If I can kind of bring back the story, she went in, to the bear's home, and there were 3, bowls of porridge. One was really super hot, one was really super cold, and the other one was just right. And I think that's really what happens with golfers. We become very careless. I could care less. I don't care about anything. So we make mistakes of sloth, lazy, just apathetic, or we become careful. We care so much. We want it so bad. We're trying so hard that we miss a lot of putts. Now, the porridge that's just right, that's what I call the carefree mindset. You care, but you're free. I mean, whether it goes in, whether it goes in, boom, no big deal. So you have to actually play with carefree confidence. It's not that you don't care, but you care just the right amount. And the whole point about, my world, what I teach, is trying to teach people with purposeful intent. I mean, when you step into a shot, You want to have a specific purpose, a specific plan. But
Yes,
your
I love that
intention-
word, by the way, purpose. Like every shot, everything must have purpose. Go
Yeah.
on.
And so I talked about purposeful intent a long time ago. So when you step into the shot, you know exactly what you want to do. This is what I'm going to do. Then you hit the shot. Well, you can't control that anymore. I mean, it is what it is. But you have to take acceptance and you have to take accountability for what does happen. And now you can have control how you want to respond. Most people react and they react poorly. Acceptance doesn't mean you have to be sort of, a pussy willow or, dandelion. Okay, I hit it out of bounds. That isn't what it means. Acceptance isn't acquiescence to some, desire. It just means it is what it is. It's sort of a neutral, objective, final causation. It is what it is. So you have to accept it and release it and move on. But this whole notion that when you actually step into a shot and you know what you know and you did what you know, then you should feel pretty good about the result because you did all that you can do. And all that you can do should be more than enough if you had your mind in the right place in the first place.
Yeah, you could be proud of yourself. I took my best shot. I did all I can. It just didn't work.
Absolutely.
Out.
I always
Right.
tell people in putting, and I know this is a real big thing. People go, gosh, I'm so scared of missing. And I'm always talking about my 10 mental rules for putting. And one of my mental rules is if you're going to actually miss putts, then by golly, step up there and miss it while trying to make it. That is one of the most important things you need to do. And I remember speaking with, Big Red years ago on the LPGA Tour, Helen Alfredsson, the great Swedish player who became Cup captain, Helen. And she would get so upset.
What a firecracker she was.
Oh, man, she would be, cussing up a blue streak. Nobody knew it because it was all Swedish. And we didn't know at that time. But I finally told her, I said, here's what you need to do. You need to step into every putt and, putt like you're going to make it. If you miss it, you miss it. But by golly, you're not going to be a big wuss, and say, oh, guys, I'm trying to gins it up there, trying to have a hit and hope, type putt. Step in there and hit it solid. And that's the other thing that Arnold Palmer taught me. He said, you step into every putt, believe me, you're going to make it, but you want to hit it solid. And that is the single most important thing I think I can help people with
I'm
their
with
putting.
you on that one. Yes. Hit it solid. And sometimes just a simple goal. I just want to hit a solid putt. You'll make some putts by accident. We're getting up against the time a little. You'll come back another time, won't you, Bob?
Oh, absolutely. Love it.
So because I promised people you're going to tell some stories about some of your students. I'm going to run through a list of them. Michelle Wee, Justin Rose, Lee Westwood. But Bernhard Langer maybe has longer legs than anybody, like the stories you can tell about him. Why don't you tell some Bernie stories?
Oh, well, I'll tell you what, I want to save a Bernhard story for another time, but I want to tell a Lee Westwood story. Okay.
All right. Yeah. Let's go.
Westy. So Lee, was a great player, came in to see David, and I been with David me a year and a half here in Orlando. And so David came in, and David's very English and South Africa. And he comes in, he goes, hey, Bob, hey, listen, Lee would like to talk with you for a little bit. So I said, okay. So, Lee came in, and he had been number 2 in the world, but he had been having a family and hadn't been playing really well. And I think he dropped down to like 180th in the world. And he was just really distraught, but he was just sort of trying to retool and resharpen his golfing knives, so to speak. So I asked him, I said, how are you playing? And he looked at me and goes, I don't know how I can explain it. I said, well, how is it? He goes, well, it's crap. That's what it is. It's crap. And he didn't say crap. All right. It's S-H-I-T. It's really what he said. And I said, well, explain that. He goes,
it's the internet, Bob. You can use full color language.
Yeah, he says that.
You will offend nobody.
And he goes, it's shit, right? And I go, yeah. And I said, tell me what's going on. He goes, I'll be playing really, really well. And I'll be hitting it, super. And then all of a sudden I'll get one shot and I have no idea where it's going. And it just blows my mind and it just infuriates me. And it's just, I can't deal with it. He goes, because if it was one pattern, one shot, but I can miss it right, I can miss it left, high, low. I don't know where it's coming from. And I don't know when it's going to show up. And so I looked at him and he goes, you got any answers for me? And I looked at him, I go, you're English, right? He goes, well, yeah. And I go, you like fish and chips, right? And he goes, bloody hell, like what's like what's going on? I go, you like fish and chips? Do you like McDonald's? Like French fries? And he goes, yeah. And I go, they're great. Like the Golden Arches, you pull a bag and you pull them out. And he goes, yeah, they're pretty good. I go, you ever got one of those little brown bastards in there? It's been cooked too long. You're sitting there going, how did this guy get in here? Right? And he goes, yeah, I've had some of those. What do you do with those? He goes, I give him a toss. You're just a bloody wanker. Just give him a toss. No big deal. I said, that's what you need to be doing with your golf game. You hit a shot. It is what it is. You let it go.
Let it go.
See, and that's the whole point, because you get back into those, other French fries, and you start, and that's what being resilient. That's really what bounce back is. But instead, you're sitting here going, "Oh God, this is terrible," and you're actually sitting there re-ingesting, this terrible, brown, over-fried French fry. You are just eating your garbage. I said, you need to toss it. And he looked at me and he goes, wow. David walks in, and after all these years, I don't think David really knows what I do with people. He knows what I do, and we have this love affair that we just love working with people, and we kind of give each other space. So David pops his head in. He goes, "Hey, how's everything working out?" And Lee Westwood looks at David Ledbetter, and he goes, "Tell you, man, here, Dr. Bob, he's got a bloody genius." And David looks at me, he goes, "Yeah?" And I said, he goes, "What are you guys talking about?" And I look at David, I go, "Talking about French fries." And he goes, "French fries?" And I go, "Yeah." And David goes, "Okay, sounds good." And he shuts the door. And that was, the rest of that. I think like 2 weeks later, Lee goes out there. I think he wins the Portugal Open, goes on a tear in Europe and comes back to America and does a lot of stuff. Now, maybe that was the tipping point for him, but it was just this realization. And what I have found through my many years of working with the very best of the best and some of the most emotionally challenged athletes is that you don't have to give them a huge dissertation. Just one or two key golden nuggets that they can sit there and go, now that makes sense. And then they just take it and they run with it. And that's really what the great athletes do. They don't need, a whole overhaul, transmission. They might just need, maybe a new oil change or just a new spark plug, just something to get them up and running. And I think that's really, what I did with Lee. But I always thought that was a funny story because David pops his head in. He goes, "What are you guys talking about?" I'm talking about French fries. And he's going, wow. And so, but that's the thing. And that's why, I've been really blessed. David Ledbetter has been a great friend, a great colleague, mentor, confidant. We've done a lot of stuff together, been through a lot of people together, and he's just been super to me. And it's been a great marriage after all these years, and that I'm still over here, at Golf Zone Ledbetter Reunion, helping so many students, really get better every day. So thanks, to David, for trusting in me all those many years. When I came down from the University of Virginia, he said, "Let's go. Let's find out and have a great time doing what we do."
It's been a great run. Sounds like it's going to continue to be it sounds like you guys are never going to retire. You're just going to keep doing. And by the way, French fries, when I get those real crunchy brown ones, I just eat them anyway. I kind of like the contrast because it makes the real good ones, the pristine ones, taste even better.
Well, that is true. I mean, that's a little comparison there for you. Okay, Kevin, that's good.
Yeah. So as we finish up here with the Confidence Doctor, Dr. Bob Winters, tell me one thing. If there's one thing that you can say to the average Joe golfer, average Jane golfer that you think could really help their game, profoundly or just a little bit, something that they can take out on the golf course the next time they play, what would it be?
This is the one thing that I have really learned over the years. I've studied it. Developed it, created a lot of theories about it. And that is, first thing first, it's your game. When you hear people talk about the cliche, play your game, because here's a truth. And this is a truism. Nobody cares what you do. Nobody cares what you shoot. It's your time. It's your money. It's your golf ball. So here's the one thing I need you to do. I need you to go out there and tell yourself, I'm going to give myself permission to play my game. I don't give a ding damn worry about what you think about my game, but I'm just going to enjoy the heck out of it. And before I step into every shot, I'm going to have a really clear picture of what I want to do, not what I'm going to try to do. This is what I'm going to do. And that's the whole notion about, Nike. I mean, their whole, slogan was just do it. And if you give yourself permission to step in and say, this is what I'm going to do with the shot. Hey, it may work out, it may not, but at least you have the consolation that you stepped in and you had this purposeful mindset. This is what I'm going to do. And if you do that, and you do that, what I call one shot at a time, I'll tell you what, you're on your way to probably playing some of the very best golf of your career. That's and it's as simple as that.
Keep it simple. The KISS method. Keep it simple, stupid. I mean, sometimes we just get in our own way. Just keep it simple, play with purpose, play with conviction, trust the muscle memory, and get to that quiet thing in the mind. Is that saying a lot and a little? Boiling it down there?
I'm going to actually, make an amendment to that. It's KISS, because I don't work with stupid people, and neither do you. I like to say keep it simple and specific. A simple thought with a specific target. And if you can just do that, a simple thought, just I'm going to do one thing and do one thing well. I'm going to do this. I'm going to go right to that specific target. That's really when KISS becomes really, really powerful stuff.
Well, I really enjoyed the time, Dr. Bob. I feel a lot better about myself. I feel a lot better about French fries. I feel a lot better. Just that, like, keeping it simple. And sometimes the answers are within, and you just got to get out of your own way. Can you come back sometime? Are you good to come back?
Yeah, I would love to. This has been fun. It's gone by really, really fast. We've got stories that we could be here, forever and ever, so it's a lot of fun.
We'll save them for later. How about that? And real quick, how can people get in contact with you? What's the easiest way?
Easiest way, they can actually find me on Instagram and Facebook at Dr. Bob Winters or Robert Winters, or they could go to my email, theconfidencedoctor.com, or you can just Google me and I'm going to show up, and you can get a hold of me, but theconfidencedoctor.com.
Okay, perfect. Big thanks to Dr. Bob Winters, our guest here on Party Time, My Golf Story. So check out all his works. Google him. Trust me, you're going to find a treasure trove of stuff. And a big thanks to our title sponsors, Party Drinks. If you're looking for a drink alternative on the golf course, try a Party. I think you'll be really happy. And if your dream is to live in golf paradise, especially at Lakewood National Golf Club, and soon to becoming Calusa Country Club, right across the street from Lakewood National Golf Club in the greater Sarasota area, Gene Walsh and Vince Visicaro from suncoastdreams.com got you covered. For Dr. Bob Winters, I'm Kevin Walsh. We'll see you again next time on Party Time, My Golf Story.
You've been listening to It's Party Time, My Golf Story, brought to you by Party Drinks. Classically designed golf drinks for golfers by golfers, and the golf real estate pros Gene Walsh and Vince Visicaro. For your Southwest Florida real estate needs, check them out at suncoastdreams.com or call 941-220-4000.
This is Vince Visicaro and Gene Walsh with the suncoastdreams.com real estate team at Fine Properties. We've helped hundreds of families find their dream homes in golf and resort communities in Lakewood Ranch, Bradenton, Sarasota, Parrish, Venice, and the surrounding areas.
Let us be your guides to finding your dream home here as well. Learn more at suncoastdreams.com or call us at 941-220-4000.
Hey, welcome to the program. We got a little different setup this time around. First things first, I'm doing this on my phone. I'm hosting on my phone for the first time. I'm in Ledger, Connecticut, southeastern Connecticut. It's 2 days before Christmas, and I'm with my family for the holidays, but I'll be back in Florida late Christmas Eve. By the time you're seeing this program, it'll be the week after Christmas. So I hope you had a really good Christmas. It is 9 degrees in Ledger, Connecticut right now. I can't wait to get back to Florida, but enjoying some time with the family. This is round 2 with Dr. Bob Winters. He is the confidence coach or the confidence doctor, and he was by far one of our most popular guests before. And for those that watched him, there were a lot of questions that resulted. Who is he? How can he help me? So in this program, what we're going to do is we're going to take some questions, viewer emails, as the industry term would say it, from him, and he's going to answer them directly. And maybe that can help you with your golf. Somebody else's question may be something that you felt in the past. And so that is his late Christmas gift to you. Dr. Bob Winters, who has coached former world number ones, who has helped amateur golfers, professional golfers, everybody under the sun. Great golfer himself, and the lead psychologist for David Ledbetter. So you're in good hands with a good doctor. Some housekeeping stuff. We are at 9,500 subscribers right now, which is amazing. If you haven't subscribed to the podcast yet, would you please do so? Because that helps us. Like the show, write some comments about the show, and share it with a friend, because that's how we grow and satisfy our sponsors. Want to send a big shout out to my buddy Skip at Skip's Marina in Inglewood, Florida. As most of you know, the hurricanes were devastating to the southern shores of the Suncoast south of Sarasota. Skip's among them, and also around Inglewood and Port Charlotte. But Skip's is open, the marina is open, and the backyard, which is a great place to get something to eat and something to drink, that's open as well. So go see my buddy Skip. A lot of places around Inglewood still not open, but people are looking for places to eat. He supports Party Drinks, so support him. Speaking of Party, title sponsor of this, if you're looking for a drink alternative on the golf course, try Party. I think you'll like it more than beer and some of those hard seltzers. And a big thanks to the golf real estate pros at suncoastdreams.com, Vince Visicaro and Gene Walsh. If your dream is to live on a golf course in the Sarasota area, nobody better than Vince and Gene, and they can help you out. All right, so let's get it on here with the man of the hour, Dr. Bob Winters. Hope you had a good Christmas, Dr. Winters. Hope you have a good New Year coming up. But tell me, how have you been? I really enjoyed our first interview, and we got a lot of traction. What's been the reaction on your end of things?
Well, I saw where it's had a lot of people, just, thousands and thousands of views. And we've had, just a great holiday season, and happy holidays to you. We're looking forward to a nice 2025. And this is sort of my belated Christmas gift to all of the viewers and listeners out there. So great to be back with you, Kevin. And we're going to do round 2. And I'm kind of looking forward to answering a lot of these questions, from our interested viewers.
Okay, cool. So let's get it going with that. All right. Let's start you off. Robbie from Lakeland, Florida. I think you know Robbie. It's Robbie Davis, the the golf coach at Florida Southern. Sure. He recently had a bout with shaky hands while putting. What's something that he or others that maybe have that nervousness in their hands, what can they do to subside the shaking?
Well, knowing, Coach Davis, and knowing, a lot of golfers who have played for a long time competitively, a lot of people ask, is this sort of a precursor to, the affliction known as the yips? And what we know is that, and I'm not saying that this is really what Robbie has or people with shaky hands have, but, mostly the yips are mostly psychological. I've been sort of this big task force for the last 20, 25 years, looking at, focal dystonias, along with some great people from the Mayo clinics, like Dr. Ainsley Smith, Dr. Bob Warren, Dr. Debbie Cruz from Arizona. There's just a lot of different people. And the one thing that we know about, focal dystonias, the yips, is that, you have 2 types. And I want to talk about the yips, and I'll get back, to Robbie in a second. But you have type 1 and type 2. Type 1 yips are almost like type 1 diabetes. Has to be treated with insulin, has to be treated with medication. Type 1, it's organically based, it's neurological, neurophysiological. It's a co-contraction of the muscles of the hands, fingers, and forearms. And type 2 is mostly psychological. And I talk about ASD, it's acute stress dysfunction. It's that people have the fear of missing. And that really creates sort of this anxiety, this pre-stroke anxiety, and they actually get up and they fear missing more than they actually want to get into the making. Now, what are some of the ramifications and actually rehabilitation for these shaky hands or whatever? First of all, since I know, Rob, he's played for a long time, and a lot of people who have played over 20 plus years and maybe play more than 50 to 60 rounds a year, they are predisposed to maybe having some sort of, I'm going to say, mental awareness, of something's going on. And what happens because, they play so much is that their perception of a putt has high perceived value. So they're putting a lot of focus on the end result. So one of the things I'm always trying to help people understand is that if you can get into the process of good putting and quit worrying about the outcome, you eliminate a lot of this outcome anxiety, whether the putt goes in or not. Because most people would just love to step up to the putt, with soft hands, comfortable hands, have this relaxed feeling, take it back and stroke the ball through, just like they used to do when they were younger, or maybe when they first got into the game. Putting was really the easiest stroke. It was just sort of back and through. So a couple of the things, that Robbie can do is, one, make sure that he doesn't have any caffeine, before he goes out and plays. Caffeine sort of exacerbates, this feeling of trepidation, this feeling of being jittery. The other thing is maybe using sort of a softer and fatter grip. So he's taking out, the fingers, the fine motor control, and putting it more in the arms and shoulders. And the other thing is, I have to ask, Robbie or any player, where are you putting all of your pressure in your hands? Are you, grabbing the putter, much, like you're trying to choke it? And you should really be holding the putter, rather lightly in your hands, almost like holding a tube of toothpaste, without, losing the tube of toothpaste. And so maybe just a slight pressure. Some players, we do, split hands. We actually, split the grip. Others, have gone to the long handle. There's a lot of different things that you can do. But one of the first things, I would do to eliminate, all this shaking is to have your pre-putt routine. And from behind the ball, right? Not just over the ball, next to the ball, but behind the ball, looking down the line. So, taking, a nice rehearsal stroke. We call this a pre-rehearsal stroke. It's pre, meaning before, and it's a rehearsal. So it's this pre-rehearsal stroke that we're taking back and through. Some people call it a practice stroke, but when you talk about practice, you're trying to define some type of skill acquisition, movement connotation. So I'm just trying to create a nice feel, gentle back and forth, getting that feel of the putter head moving back and through, just a nice, comfortable feeling. So that when you step into the ball, and you actually aim the putter, you look down the line at, the hole, so you can get sort of your distance and direction judgment. You come back to the ball, and you just sort of, initiate, that feel that you've already initiated, behind the ball. So we're really talking about stepping in and actually making a stroke that's very similar to the one you just made 6 or 7 seconds earlier. So, those are some thoughts for Robbie.
It's almost like part 3 of it, with not so much a care about the results, but it's just boom, boom, step in, just like you did.
Yeah, it's sort of, look and respond instead of actually sitting over the putt and giving yourself this conscious deliberation. Oh, I have to make this. This is the big putt. This is for, my birdie, or this is for my par. This is for me breaking 80. So when you have, that outcome focus, it puts a lot of internal pressure. And pressure is defined in putting as tension. It's tension in the hands, in the arms, in the shoulders, in the neck, and especially in the face. And one of the things I always tell players, if you have a really big putt, open your mouth, loosen your jaw, and that releases, these neck muscles that kind of flows right down into your hands and your forearms. So, open your mouth, just breathe normally, and just take a look at the putter and come back and through. But, those are some things I would suggest, to Coach Robbie.
Okay, that's an interesting thing, because that sort of like dovetails into my next question. Didn't know that about opening the mouth and loosening the jaw. This is my question. How do I control my breathing to better stay calm under pressure? I just read a book about breathing and said always breathe through the nose. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I've done a lot of work, with breath coaches and NeuroPeak, and, they actually have, this monitor where you actually sort of breathe and it sort of regulates your breathing. But, one of the things that we know through, stress reduction exercises is something that the Navy SEALs use, and that's box breathing. And box breathing, is sort of, you go up into this box. So you breathe in through your nose. Now, a lot of people want to breathe in and they have like this high upper diaphragm breath. They bring their chest up. That's not really what great yoga-like or Zen breathing is. It's sort of letting your tummy come out. Like, little kids, you see little kids with their tummies out. When you breathe in, you should actually have your tummy coming out. So when we breathe in maybe to the count of 3 or 4. We breathe in 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we'll hold it for 3, and then we'll let it out. Exhale 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we'll actually breathe in again 1, 2, 3, 4. Let it go, and then just start the process all over again. And that's a very easy way to actually calm yourself down long before you even step into the putt. But something I learned working with archers and marksmen, shooters on the range, was something called down at the very bottom of the breath is when you really want to release the arrow or shoot the gun. So when you're over a putt, you're kind of looking down the line and you're breathing through your mouth. You can breathe through your nose and mouth, but you can breathe through your nose and just let the exhalation come through your mouth. The reason why we keep our mouth open is that a lot of people, when they get over a shot, they tense their mouth, they tense their jaws, and this TMJ joint here, when you tense that up, it tenses all these neck muscles here and tenses it here in the upper shoulders. And it really creates a very robotic mechanical stroke. So the more you can just kind of, let your breathing breathe itself and just kind of take, a nice little breath in through your nose. And then, when you come back, your eyes back to the ball, you kind of let, your air just come out. And right at the bottom of your breath is probably when you should actually be initiating that stroke, because that is really what we call the still part of the shot.
Yeah, I can feel it. I can feel it now, like imagining it and feeling it.
When we get into advanced breathing, we talk about, heart rate, breathing in between, your heart and your heartbeat, and that's sort of, a higher level elite skill. But all you have to do is just simply, breathe through your nose, open up your mouth, let the air come out through your mouth, and then at the very bottom, hit the putt. And keeping your mouth open. A lot of times, players go, well, if I keep my mouth open, what should I be doing with my tongue? A lot of times, players, and this is something consciously to get their minds into doing something rather than the importance of the putt, they'll come here and they'll put their tongue to the top of their mouth. And If you do that right now, it's just another thing. It's, we call it, a conscious beta, distraction. You're doing it actively, but it's, taking you off of the outcome, and it's getting you to do something that you feel is helping you.
Got it. Okay, cool. Rodney from Chaska, Minnesota wants to know, what do touring professionals generally think about when standing over the ball? I like to try what they do.
Well, just by vocational choice, elite golfers, tour professionals, they've been doing this a long time. So they've developed this motor schema in their brain. And a motor schema is this blueprint of, repetitive behavior. So when they step into a shot, they're really not thinking about how to do it. They're thinking about where the ball is going to go. So when we start talking about falling in love with your target, we're really, letting the visual system drive the motor system directly. I see it, I come back to the ball, and I swing. They're really not thinking about anything. I think most amateurs and most beginning to intermediate players or people who are working on their swing have very black and white, conscious, self-directed instructions that they're giving themselves. They're almost taking it, very coercively. Step 1, step 2, here's where I need to be. That's not fluid, that's not flowing at all. And so, the great pros, when they actually step up there, just through, practice, repetition, habituation, they're looking at the target. They're really not thinking about anything other than the ball going to the target. Now, I've had several players that say, I need something. I need training wheels. I say, okay, Kentucky Fried Chicken, great franchise, used to have, marketing device, and their slogan was, we do one thing well, and we do this, we fry chicken. The same thing with golf. If you have, one key, one cue, one thing that you want to do, this is the feel. If I feel like I can actually pull through and swing through the ball to the target, that's the one cue that you want to have. But, the brain only needs one thing. You don't need 4 or 5 things in the brain. Just give yourself one thought. It could be an image. It could be a mechanical cue. It could be sort of a feel or tempo. But that's really what the tour pros are doing. They're swinging this feel that they have rehearsed over and over through practice and repetition to actually just swing that feel to the target. And that's really what movement and trust and confidence is all about.
It almost sounds like casting a fishing rod. You just look at the target and you throw it. And if you're any good at it, if you've done it enough, you hit the target. So you're not thinking about the mechanics of a cast and fishing.
Yeah, you're not thinking about really the angle of your elbow and really, you're just sitting here just kind of letting it go. But you have rehearsed that movement,
Right.
often enough. And see, that's a double-edged sword too, because, a lot, millions and millions of golfers have gotten really good at doing the wrong thing. So they're creating negative behavior every time they step up to it. So it's important, that you actually get your skill set correct and then, rehearse that so that you can trust it and then you don't have to think about it when you're playing.
Good muscle memory, not bad muscle memory.
Yeah.
Okay. Wayne from Longport, New Jersey wants to know, if you have a good round going, what can you do to protect it and get it in the house?
That's a great question, Wayne. The first thing is, there's no protection in golf. If you're starting to protect, you're already starting to become self-aware. You're already starting to, think about score. You're already predicting what's going to happen. The reason why, Wayne, you're actually doing so well is because you're not thinking about score. You're not thinking about outcome. You are in the present moment, playing your game one shot at a time. And that's really, what the very best players do. They're just taking it one after one until they're done. I always tell my players to string pearls. We're doing it one after one. And the funny thing is, when you're on the 16th hole and you start thinking, wow, I'm doing really well. I can actually have my personal best if I just make a couple good swings here. That doesn't do anything positive for you at all. In fact, that puts, self-imposed pressure on you. What you need to realize that what you've been doing all day long is confirmation that your process and your thoughts and your body is working. So continue to do that. Don't be, sitting here thinking about score, results, outcomes, rank, if you're going to beat your buddies. Continue to get back into this single moment. And that's why a lot of times I will have players, and I'll pull one out right here. I'll have them, wear, like a rubber band. It's just like a little rubber band here. It could be a big one, it could be a little one. And I'll have this here. And when a person, starts to self-reflect, or someone says, hey, you're doing really well today, keep it up. So a lot of people, human nature, go, wow, I hope I can keep it up. I hope I can bring it home. You need to remind yourself, hey, it might be the good intentions of others, and they might be saying, well wishes, but it kind of puts a little extra pressure on you. What you need to do is you need to take that little rubber band, pull it, snap it, and remind yourself, hey, what I've been doing has been working all day. So I'm just going to continue really what I'm doing. It's much like I've always told a lot of my players, I said, what's your favorite ice cream flavor? And if they tell me vanilla, I say, good. You want to, keep it vanilla all day long. Because when you get on the 16th hole, you don't want to be thinking Rocky Road. All right. I need to change flavors. And that's the biggest mental mistake that golfers do. They think they need to do something more, something even more advanced. They don't have to do anything other than continue the process one after one until they're done.
Sean Jacklin told me a story about his dad when he was on his way to winning his first British Open, where he was smacking himself in the face to keep himself present, not getting ahead, because he was thinking about holding the claret jug. it's a little more extreme version of the rubber band on the.
Well, I've had that for so many times. I know that Tom Abbott, and some people who have been, recording, and he's been a good friend. He's always, he's very noticeable about, what, some of the girls are doing on tour. And I don't know if he's ever said it, but I know that some of my players on the LPGA tour over the years, they have actually, been, snapping the rubber bands, or they, sort of readjust their caps or whatever. And these are all little, what we call cognitive behavioral anchors, if you will, just to sort of help you, guide that ship back on path, because it's so easy to get, distracted. It's so easy to get lost in the results, because that's the first thing people ask you when you get, done. What'd you shoot? What'd you shoot? What'd you shoot? And we need to understand that whole notion about trying to run and chase a score is the worst way to screw up a score. You need to be doing it one after one after one until you're done. And then we'll total it up.
Right.
And then people will be really pleased with their end result.
I think a lot of what you're saying, like one of our next guests here on Party Time, My Golf Story, is going to measure really right up with Kyle Rhodes, a local golfer from the Lakewood Ranch area who has shot in the 50s, not once but twice. Recently won a North Florida PGA event shooting 59, and had previously shot a 58 in a social round. So I'm going to stack what you just said up against what I expect he's going to say, and he's our next guest here on Party Time. Dr. Bob Winters is our guest. He is the confidence doctor. He's worked with world number ones, professional golfers, amateur golfers. Party Time brought to you by Party Drinks. If you're looking for a drink alternative on the golf course, try Party. And if you're looking for golf real estate in the Suncoast area of Sarasota, nobody better than suncoastdreams.com. Gene Walsh and Vince Visicaro from suncoastdreams.com, a division of Fine Properties. Dr. Bob, what are your thoughts about singing a tune in your head during a round? Rich from Fresno, California, wants to know, singing a tune in your head or playing tunes on a speaker, which we're seeing more and more from golf bets?
Well, Rich, good for you. It's nice to have an earworm. We call them psychological earworms. You got this tune, you got this voice going in your head. I think for a lot of people, it's sort of a pleasant, I don't want to say it's a distraction, but it's something pleasant that you do, and it kind of puts you in a happy place, so to speak. And, some players, listen, to some type of music to kind of get them into some type of emotional, some type of mood state. Sometimes they feel they're a little bit too amped up. They need something to kind of bring them down. Others, hear songs to sort of motivate them, to invigorate them. So I think, having an earworm, it's a very, very good thing. I see a lot of, our junior, academy students at the Ledbetter Golf Zone Academy, which I've been affiliated now with for 25 years. I see them now putting in a lot of headphones, earbuds, and listening to music. I sort of worry about that a little bit, because I think sometimes when you're listening to music, and if you're listening to the music, you're really not listening to the inner rhythms of your body swing. And you're really not maybe focusing on your movements if you're really trying to practice and really develop some type of skill, some type of specific body movement there. As far as the live and all, the warm up, music or whatever, I think that's all, fun. I think it's all good. But what we know now from sports vision, sports science, and sports psychology is that the more distractions that you can throw at, a person, it helps drive that organism into more of a focused cocoon, if you will. And so, when people are really totally focused, and maybe I'm in the visual sensory system, and I'm really focusing on really where this ball needs to go, and I'm stepping up to the first tee, I'm looking down the fairway, and someone drops some clubs behind you, or someone makes a noise or whatever, and you go ahead and hit, and people go, wow, didn't you hear that? No, because you really weren't, there in the auditory system. You were totally in the visual system. And that's really what concentration is. Concentration, a lot of people think, is the ability to focus on one thing. That's part of it, but it's the ability to focus in the sensory system that you're operating on. Kind of a funny story, Kevin. years ago, I met, Alice Cooper, the rock star, and we became really good friends. And Coop, which I call him, we played, several times together. Really good player, because that's really what he did in between gigs, in between shows. He, didn't want to do any of the other, wild, kooky stuff. He'd already done that, so he picked up golf and became unbelievably good at it. But he was telling me that he has a tournament out in Arizona at his home where they can distract anybody at any time on the golf course, whether it's throwing firecrackers, blowing whistles, having horns, or whatever. And he goes, it's pretty amazing how focused you can get with all of this other, interference going on. And I asked him, I said, what's, the greatest interference? And he said, well, he goes, sometimes it's the unexpected. And I said, almost like silence. I said, silence can be deafening sometimes, is that everybody, is talking, and then everybody, gets really quiet. And now you realize all, the eyes are on you. So I thought that was, pretty interesting. But, there's just a lot of things that people are doing. But if you think about it, if there's someone mowing the grass, or there's a lot of traffic or whatever, and you're playing, that really doesn't seem to bother people. It's sort of that unexpected, chaotic cacophony, that noise that just comes at precisely the wrong time in your swing, and that's sort of really what interrupts. And I remember a lot of people talking about players on the tour that had rabbit ears. I mean, they saw everything, they knew everything, and those people who had rabbit ears were really the people that were easily distracted, and they really weren't playing their very best golf.
No, they weren't the best players. That's for sure, because they were looking for problems to happen instead of focusing on results and what they're doing. Dr. Bob, we're getting toward the end. I want to just ask you one final question.
Okay.
If you could give one tip and explain it in like a minute or less, what any player of any ability can do to get in a good mental place before a round or during it, like what is it and how do they get there?
I think, before you actually go out and play, I think you need to have a nice warm-up routine. I think you need to actually play the first couple of holes right there on the range and make it as golf-like as you can. Create this performance situation. A lot of people hit shot after shot after shot and get into this rhythm, and that doesn't really translate, to golf performance. You need to step up and say, here's my drive, go to another target, another direction. Here's my 8-iron into the hole. Here's a little pitch. I mean, try to play it and sort of break it down a little bit. But as far as one overall great tip that I've helped people through the years, and I have several books out there, and one of them is called Mistake-Free Golf, and people can get that at Amazon or Barnes & Noble. And I talk about the 9 most common mental mistakes. And I think that one of the biggest mental mistakes that golfers make is that they don't have a clear idea of what they want to do before they step into the ball. If you have a very clear idea, this is what I want to do, this is how I'm going to do it, here's the feel I'm going to have for it, you are in essence creating confidence for yourself. So when you create confidence, back here behind the ball, and you say, this is what I'm going to do, you step into the ball and you step in with confidence, because what we're doing, we're trying to eliminate all of the doubt, all of the tension, and create a pathway towards success. And that's really what having a clear and a committed mindset gives you. That would be my number one tip.
Love it. Okay, I'm going to put that to use next time I play because my game's not in a good place. We could talk about that another show. Really appreciate you, Dr. Bob. Hope you have a good new year coming up. And much success to you. Thanks for being a friend of the program. And I know people love you, and this will probably be a big hit. Part 2. All
right. Thanks, Kevin. All right. Appreciate it.
All right.
Hey, Kevin, I want to time out. And if people a lot of people say, hey, how can I get a hold, of Dr. Bob Winters?
Yep.
It's very, very easy. They can actually go to The Confidence Doctor, theconfidencedoctor.com, or you can find me on Facebook and Instagram under Dr. Bob Winters or Dr. Robert Winters. And I'm always, eager to hear motivated and students who want to, play the game and have a little bit more success. So, thanks, Kevin, thanks Party, and, for having me on. And I always want to remind my players, the moment you change your mind, you change your game. Let's have a great 2025 golfing year.
Dr. Bob, thanks for everything. And scrolling across the bottom is how people can get in touch with you in addition to the good plug at the end there. Big thanks to Dr. Bob. Big thanks to Party Drinks. Big thanks to the golf real estate pros of Gene Walsh and Vince Visicaro at suncoaststreams.com. For Dr. Bob Winters, I'm Kevin Walsh. We'll see you again next time on Party Time, My Golf Story.
You've been listening to It's Party Time, My Golf Story, brought to you by Party Drinks. Classically designed golf drinks for golfers by golfers, and the golf real estate pros Gene Walsh and Vince Visicaro. For your Southwest Florida real estate needs, check them out at suncoaststreams.com or call 941-220-4000.
This is Vince Visicaro and Gene Walsh with the suncoaststreams.com real estate team at Fine Properties. We've helped hundreds of families find their dream homes in golf and resort communities in Lakewood Ranch, Bradenton, Sarasota, Parrish, Venice, and the surrounding areas.
Let us be your guides to finding your dream home here as well. Learn more at suncoaststreams.com or call us at 941-220-4000.